Howie and Beastmode podcast, where we discuss all things business, including growth, strategy, and execution, as well as personal and professional development. Let's join Howie and Beastmode in conversation.
Dustin, you want to pray, brother?
Yep. Cool. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for tonight, as you bring me just other people that are listening to this. Lord God, I pray that we have beautiful ears, that we can look for your word and your guidance throughout this. So this time, Father God, I want to give this time to you, that you allow us to continue to hear your voice and to hear your calling on our lives. I pray for just safety for these men, these individuals, Father God, coming in and coming out. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Well, we were going to talk about investing in health. This is the fourth week that we have covered this sort of series. And then next time we'll cover investing in your purpose. We're kind of doing, the Gateway group is basically catching every other week of this. And then we're podcasting the off week, basically. So those are all still available. Last week, what was last week? Hang on. It was
Learning.
Investing in learning, yeah. Yeah, that wasn't bad, actually. But anyway, so we don't have any scriptures, Dustin. We wanted to just kind of like let the Spirit move. We didn't have a lot of prep time. We did know the bullets that we wanted to cover, but we didn't have a lot of deep, prep time. So we're just going to just kind of talk about it. So who wants to talk about investing in your health, physical first? You're doing some training, right, Dustin? Jordan? Keeping up with that pretty good, or?
Yeah, I'm not doing training specifically for any type of goal. I think investing in your health is super important.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you guys know this, but it's been a long time now. I don't know if I even knew you guys, but I think it was 6-7 years ago, I lost 110 pounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I've just maintained that since then.
That's so exciting.
And so I know the struggles of just, it was obviously more than just health. There was a mental and emotional and a spiritual battle that was going on, that I was losing all of the battles.
Right.
And then, once you kind of tripped one up, then you can start tackling another. So, but health, again, we have one body, and, the mind is going to outlast any of this stuff. And so just being able to, if our body's going to be the first thing to go. So just being able to take care of that is so important.
So what does your training look like right now?
Well, that I spend, so
you kind of do a walk every day, right? That's one thing.
Well, yeah. So I do every morning. I do anywhere between an hour and a half to 3 hours of walking, just depending upon what time I get going. I prefer the longer time frame. It just gives me a lot more time just to kind of soak in that time. And distance, is anywhere between 6 miles to 12 miles. But then that's normally just my quiet time. That doesn't count as my workout at all. I normally will try to get to the gym or do 30 minutes of something later on that day.
So what does that look like?
I'm a weights guy. Again,
are you free weights?
Yeah. And
I saw your pictures. You had free weights. So I kind of was relating to you a little bit. I felt like you were a free weights guy.
Yeah, I'm definitely a free weights guy, unless I'm going really heavy and there's nobody else around.
Right.
Then
got it.
It's just for safety.
Dude, I already know. I broke my finger. I don't even know if I broke my toe, but I still have blood in it from 7 months ago at the tip of my nail. And then my back, I've done. So trust me, it's not an insignificant issue. Unfortunately, I do lift alone, but it's not. I don't blame you for using the weights when it's bigger weights.
So, but yeah, so I'm more of probably a 10 to 15 rep, 3-4 times. I don't take a whole lot of breaks just because I try to keep the heart rate going.
That's good.
Because condense it down to 25 to 35 minutes. That way, because my schedule's already pretty tight.
Sure.
Keep the heart rate up and just be in and out. So.
And then do you do like groupings? Like, are you like, hey, tonight's like upper body and tomorrow's like, like do you kind of group it?
Yeah, I do. I do abs every single day, just because your core is just another thing.
Core, right.
But normally what I'll do is I'll do like 2 or 3 exercise of whatever I'm focusing on that day. And then I'll take the pause with the ab workout, not workout, but like an ab set, and then come back in with, so like for an example, I'll do like a bench and then mix with like a tricep exercise in there, mixed with like another more isolated chest exercise. Then I'll do the ab workout, that's 1 set or something like that. And then I'll do another 3 sets, let's say a different tricep exercise and 2 more chest exercises. And that's 1 complete set. And I'll do that 3 times. So I normally try to have like 8 individual things split by, or 6 to 8 individual things split by 1 ab. So the ab will get done 3 or 4 times by itself, and then everything else will get done 3 or 4 times. Make sense?
It's a lot to process, but I get the general spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. So
good. And you follow is it kind of like a written plan?
No, I've just had.
You kind of spitball it. You kind of just spitball it, like you kind of.
Well, I've had some conversations and I've done some research. I'm not Dustin at all, so I'm not going to research it all day long. My brother's like that though. My brother's got like, he'll buy books and all kinds of stuff. And I'm more along. I'll skim, get a couple of things, and it's like, okay, I'll figure it out from here. So.
Mm-hmm. I'll go next because Dustin's eating, so I'll just take the floor. I don't know. Can you guys tell I'm cycling right now? My desk, I have like a cycle desk. So, well, it's not really a cycle desk. I have there's something that you buy on Amazon called the desk cycle. It's about $160. And it goes under any desk, really. You can also do this if you're a gamer. And some of our viewers easily could be gamers, especially, that tends to be a very online audience. So maybe they're watching that. But yeah, desk cycle is great. It's a good investment. I really encourage it. Why would you just sit there and watch TV when you could cycle and burn, 150 calories an hour? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And then, so, I've got that. I've got a stand-up desk at work too. So right now I'm in sitting mode and I'm cycling. I can't very well use stand-up mode and cycle at the same time. It doesn't work. So that's kind of what I do as kind of a little bit of a daily thing. But, so this weekend was really crazy preparing for some interviews. So I worked an ungodly amount of hours. But one day I was up to like over 700 calories because I just cycled like all day and into the night as I was working, as I was prepping. So it's really, so 150 calories is pretty much the low side of what I ever do on this cycle. But it's tiring, I mean, you think, oh, you're just multitasking, but it actually does take a toll. And there's 8 different levels of resistance. I've been on 8 for over 3, probably over 4 years. I've been on 8 forever. So I wish they would make like a 16 level of whatever, because I'm not going to get any muscle out of this. For me, it's just like no big deal now. But it's real quiet. Obviously you can't hear it. It's completely silent. It's magnetic. It's smooth. So I do recommend it. The stand-up desk that I got, it's nice. It remembers your positions. It was $250. I got it with the last company that I worked for, and they let me keep it when they laid me off. And so I kind of have a nice office setup here, which is great. Workout wise, I have a 3-program workout that I've used for 3 years that has evolved. It's just, I call it P1, P2, P3. Tonight I did P1. which is kind of like overhead press, curls, and then I do weighted crunches, weighted twist crunches. And I do incline walking on the treadmill for 22 minutes. It's a little over 2 hours, but it's not like you where it's like, oh, I'm moving from set to set. I mean, it's much more like, moderately heavy, but I do like 8 sets. So I do a lot of sets. And that may or may not be right or wrong. I don't know. I don't I'm like you. I'm not going to go read about this. So I'm just kind of inventing. But my theory in doing a lot of sets is that even though it takes a long time, because I do take a break between each one, but my theory is that it's good for longevity in terms of joint and tendon and muscle, sort of like it's like a low stress over time, over many sets. So I feel like I'm building a foundation. And then as the weight gets too light, I'll go up a chunk, and then I'll go it might be like 9 months before I raise the weight again, because it takes forever to do 8 sets of a certain thing. Anyway, too long of an explanation, but I've been doing that for a while. And, trying to lose weight, I'm on keto. So, I've been on keto for a year and 2 months now. I've cheated less than 6 times in a year and a half, or in a year and whatever. And yeah, but I do like pizza still. So, but yeah, that's what I do. It's a fairly decent program.
Wear ankle weights when you cycle.
That's a good idea, and I have them too. I don't know where they are, but I knew where they are actually. Yeah, that would be a good way to get take it from an 8 to a 9 or something. Yeah, smart. Thank you.
Because that's what I wear. When I walk in the morning, I wear a 40-pound weight vest.
Okay, yeah, that's smart.
So
really smart. You have good posture when you're doing it, because you don't want to jack up your posture.
I definitely do, because I'm reading, and so I walk.
Yeah.
Side, but
good.
Straight up and down,
yeah.
Read, and
I have seen those guys. I saw some other guy with a weighted vest. That's a good idea too, actually. And just the walking is pretty appealing, to be honest. That's really, really appealing. I should go. One of the things that maybe we should all do sometime, I would really, if you guys wanted to sign up for this, I would do it. But Grapevine and Flower Mound have trails like crazy. So I would do I know Justin's going to make me get up in the morning.
Yeah, I go early.
I probably would, but I'm not getting up beast mode early.
Yeah, I'm going at 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Not happening.
Yeah,
I just stopped working at 4.
Like 6. I'm like the middle ground. I can do it 6 o'clock.
I'm still on my computer working on my resume and my freaking whatever job interview prep I am at 4 or 3.
There you go.
That ain't happening.
Just don't go to sleep.
I tend to be a late worker because I'm real creative and sharp and less interrupted at night. And plus it's just my style. So I tend to work real super late. This weekend I worked until 3 one night, followed by 4 the next night or something. I probably spent, I'm not sure exactly. In my journal, I said I spent 14 to 16 hours on this resource to try to blow the people that I was interviewing with away. And I don't think it went well. One of them I got to know, and the other one I think I will get to know. So today was a hard day, but we'll get into mental and emotional and spiritual, which is where I'll bring that up a little bit more appropriately here in a minute. But I want to hear about Dustin and health, and if you don't have a program, don't feel bad. But if you do, then
no,
we'd love to hear.
I'm a major underachiever between you guys. I had a program every single day. I documented my reps.
Oh, cool.
I took supplements. I mean, anything I get really interested in, I go 120%. So I went from that, and that's when my wife met me, obviously in my better looking years. And now she's like, well, how come you don't work out anymore? I'm like, well, I mean, I don't want to say I got comfortable, but I'm starting to realize I can only really focus on one thing at a time. I get really in depth on one thing, and then everything else just kind of falls to the wayside a bit. So I'm kind of getting back into it. I've never had an issue with gaining weight. I actually have the reverse issue. I lose weight if I don't do anything. I used to lose about 10 to 15 pounds every summer just because I would just lose it.
Wow.
And so I have to be careful to make sure I eat enough, because I can go through a day without eating. I mean, I don't have to eat
Yeah.
if I don't want to. It's
Some
really
people are wired like that. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
understand.
So I have to overeat sometimes. But right now I'm just really doing the basic push-ups, tricep, little push things that I do on a chair. And my wife has one of those boards. What is it? You shuffle on it.
Oh, I
got a
have one
bunch
of
different
those.
names.
Yeah, I got it on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
It's a Shark Tank product. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I haven't used it in a long time, but I do like it.
So I use it though. I do squats on it.
Good for your
But
core.
I also do push-ups on top of it, and then I flip it to get
That's
some
smart.
different variations.
Okay.
And so I've kind of mixed it up to where if I can, I mean, obviously right now I'm super weak. I've only been doing it for, 3 weeks. But just those 3 exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, triceps, you're working your core when you're doing push-ups, and then you have, you're on top of the board, so you got your core. And then I try to be, active with, right now I'm fishing, having to row. Obviously,
Yeah, that's a
rowing
big deal.
lot.
Yeah.
So my shoulders actually getting kind of worked up a
Yeah.
little bit. So it's just trying to stay as active as my schedule will allow me, just like, Jordan.
That's great.
I'm just really, limited.
Can I tell you something about the psychology?
Yeah.
I'm
sure.
a little bit of a one topic guy as well, to be honest. And so like the job search right now is pretty consuming.
Yeah.
So, but I will say that because I've been doing this for 3 years now, the workout is more of just an expected routine instead of like it's a topic I have to focus on. So it becomes background noise. Plus I watch a show when I'm doing it and stuff, or I listen to music. So, it becomes entertainment a little bit as well. But that does fade. I know for a little while it's a novelty and it's kind of a focus thing. And it takes a lot of mental, but after a while, and it may be several months of this, but after a while you can focus on other stuff. Cause right now I'm focusing on, the job search and that without too much problems. And before that, I do work hard when I have a job. And so I was doing that and the workout, no problem as well. So it'll happen. But I'm really glad that you started. That's so great. That's the hardest thing. It takes a lot of courage and guts to basically face that. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and also what's cool is that my children see me do it.
Ooh, there you go.
Right, and so that's a big thing. I grew up. My dad was in the military. I grew up watching him do push-ups and sit-ups.
Oh, cool.
And so what am I doing now?
Yeah.
Is that my kids are watching me doing push-ups, sit-ups.
Yeah, good for you.
And those exercises, so that kind of just goes through our lineage of, hey, this is just what we do. We work out, we take care of ourselves, we eat right. That just becomes like our family, tradition or motto.
That's so cool. And the fishing too will be a good thing. Well, good. Yay. I'm really, really glad. Any comments, Jordan, on any of that stuff or anything else?
Yeah, probably. I know I've talked to you about this, Howie. Some of the best time I get in just thinking comes during my workouts, where my body will get into the routine of this is just workout, so it's going to be tough, and my mind will just kind of go. But then I'll put on a podcast and I can like super hyper focus, or I can read. I'm just so involved in that. And so I I use the workout more as kind of a physical fatigue, as much as anything else. I need it to wear my body down so that my mind can take over. My mind can think. So
some of my posts that I do on LinkedIn come all at once from working out. It's actually interesting. Like I've done a couple of poetry ones. And it's just like I got the whole thing like all at once during a workout, or like something inspirational, or something about perseverance. It's easy to think about perseverance when I'm having to make myself do one more overhead press and I don't want to, and it's hard and I'm hurting. You know what I mean? So it's like it's easy to have an inspirational thought about perseverance, which can apply to business. So I totally agree that the brain seems to benefit pretty well from those times, no doubt. Very cool. What about mental? I want you to lead off on this because it's easier for me to relate to the emotional health topic, especially because today was a terrible day for me, but also just in general. So can you lead off on mental? Like, what do you mean by that? And then also, what do you do?
Yeah, so investing in mental. So this is going to kind of tie into spiritual, at least for me in the beginning, just because it's something, in the Bible, it talks about, and this may be a scripture that we can reference, but
cool.
It talks about have the mind of Christ, right? So every morning as I'm putting on my armor, as I'm putting on my family's armor, as the priest of our household, we have the ability to do that as a men. And so irregardless if they do it or not. And so when I'm putting on this is obviously very spiritual, but when I'm putting on our helmet of salvation, I'm just reminding myself I have the mind of Christ. And for me, another thing that I just consistently remind myself of is that, I am created by the Creator. Thus, I am creative. Just because I find that if I remind myself that God made me creative, then it opens the door for me to say, this is creative, or I can have creative thoughts, because I can be sometimes a little down on that. And so one of the books that I would highly recommend is a book called Mindset. It's by Carol Dweck, D-W. You read it, Dustin? But it's tremendous. You're just totally fixated on changing your mindset, changing the outcome, changing if I can change the input, I'm going to change the output. And so a lot of these things talk about thought processes. Bad actions kind of starts from a bad thought, a bad characteristic that we see on the outside coming out is generally coming from a negative thought or a bad thought. So if I can change my mindset, if I can change the course, then the earlier I can cut it off, the better it's going to be for the outcome coming out. So
it's
I'm a huge
interesting.
Go
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You got me excited. Go ahead. I'll say in a minute.
Go ahead, Howie.
I mean, I've seen the downside of that, right? When you talked about a bad thought leads to bad action. I mean, people think they can indulge in pornography and it has no impact. And yet, to be completely honest, my history with that was devastating. It led me to actual action, not just like, some fantasy. And I took action on it. And so, I mean, I feel like I have experience. I know what that looks like. Now I'm trying to think of good examples where, I'm sure I'll think of some when we all start talking about this. But I agree. I've seen the bad actually lead to action. What?
Yeah, the Bible talks about that we have the ability to pull thoughts captive.
Yeah.
And then it actually says we submit it to Christ. And when it says to submit, it's actually talking about like a wrestling move, like to hold it in submission. And basically you're asking Christ, is this of you or is this of my flesh? And so I mean, you can do that with purity thoughts, and when they
it doesn't have to just be pure. I mean, I didn't want to go right to the gutter there, but I mean, I know it's more than purity.
No, you can do it with integrity. You can do it with sense of emotions, or with sense of, do I want to do this, or, do I want to work out, or do I not want to work out? And I can pull that thought captive and says, I need to work out because of this. And I'm able to feel that and immediately replace it with something different. And it goes back to a mindset that I can take that thought, I can capture it. It's not just because the thought comes in there doesn't mean I have to see it all the way through. I can cut it off right there.
Wow. That's really good. I'm glad we added that, because I didn't have a lot on that, and I now realize it's a huge one. So I'm going to capture the scripture that you brought up. Can you guys see?
Yeah, I would like to. I'd add too that
Yep.
a big thing for me that changed. We're talking about input. The simple action of reading the Bible every day. I was never a big Bible reader until I got around other Bible readers and started to look at them, how they live their life, the way they talk. And I started cutting things out that I would receive through listening, through my eyes, smells. I mean, literally, all these inputs that you're exposed to every day. I needed to not only to filter that, but I need to be careful about myself, what my family took in. And so when you start taking in these what the Lord is saying, these affirmations, right? Your life then becomes a fruit of that, right? So that's why it's so important. But like that's been a huge thing for me, is just, get in the Bible every day, let it be a part of your life. That way the output is the fruit.
That's great. Thank you. Well, I guess I'll read the scriptures that Jordan brought up. 2 Corinthians 2:16. I just grabbed New Living just for no reason. Who can know the Lord's thoughts? Who knows enough to teach him? But we understand these things, for we have the mind of Christ. So that's a really good thing to say, you know what? I don't have to go through this depression, or I don't have to go through this lust, or I don't have to go through, I don't know, another one. Those are two big ones. Because I have the mind of Christ. So that's really great. Like, Holy Spirit, why am I dealing with that thought pattern right now? I have the mind of Christ. Help me to swim with the flow of what you're thinking, and not this random thing that is bringing me down or is making me stumble or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's great. It's kind of a promise. We have the mind of Christ. I like that. I'm going to underline that. Then this one is 2 Corinthians 10:5. We destroy every proud obstacle that keeps us, or that keeps people from knowing God. We capture their rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey Christ. You know what? I don't like that translation as much as what I'm used to seeing in that verse, because taking every thought captive is, because I have had some experience with doing that, and it's not just about others. It's definitely about you. So I'm not sure that that's too narrow of a translation, I think. The way I normally, in versions that I normally read, it says, taking every thought captive, and that's another sort of good promise thing. And I intercept my own thoughts all the time, and it's never, I don't know that it's gotten easier, even on like purity. I'm trying to be pure or whatever, and I stumble onto something I shouldn't, and I'm just like, oh great. And it really works on me too. I mean, I'm not impervious. I have some victory, but I'm not impervious. So I'll stumble on something, and I'd be like, oh shoot, and I can feel it working on me. I'm like, Lord, I need some help right now. And so, I mean, I still appropriate it fit with difficulty, but it is on purpose, I would say. So, I mean, I am I'm going after him, and I'm not fighting alone. I definitely am not fighting alone. I never do. To be honest, I don't fight anything alone. But it doesn't make it easier.
Can I read you that scripture out of the Passion Translation?
Please.
So it says, we can demolish every deceptive fantasy that opposes God and break through every arrogant attitude that is raised up in defiance of the true knowledge of God. We capture, like prisoners of war, every thought that insists that it bow in obedience to the Anointed One.
I like that. That's way better. It's not even
And then,
close.
and then,
Yeah,
but
you picked like the worst one.
Yeah, that's the worst one.
But then you follow it up with verse 6. I mean, verse 5 is what we normally focus on. Verse 6 says, since we are armed with such dynamic weaponry, we stand ready to punish any trace of rebellion as soon as you choose complete obedience. You know? And so it's just reminding us how powerful the ability that we have to capture that thought, and then not just capture it, but to punish that thought, you know, that we don't have to, I mean, and again, everybody on the line is faith-based, you know, as believers, I don't have to deal with depression. I can punish depression right on away. I don't have to deal with impure thoughts. I can punish them right on away, you know, because again, I have the mind of Christ and I receive it to its fullest and I choose to operate in it, you know, and that's where the mental capability is so strong. I remember, I think it was a year or so ago, Stephen Furtick had a psychiatrist or something on one of his sermons, and she was talking about the anatomy and physiology of that verse, what it actually looks like, that, you know, they can literally see you capture a thought and then removing it. They can watch it in your brain happen, you know.
Wow, cool.
To pull a negative thought. And so you know they can show you a picture of something that's hurtful, they can see your brain start to light up or whatever, but then they can see you change it, grab it, and then you're thinking about something else, and then they ask you, you know, what happened, and, you know, I thought about, you know, my firstborn baby or whatever, but you pulled that thought down and you can see it change, you know. But if you don't, I mean, we've all been in that circumstance where something makes us mad and then we ruminate on it, we think on it, now we're more mad, and then, you know, by the end of the day we've kicked a couple cats and knocked down a couple doors, you know. It's just, you know, we didn't pull it captive.
Yeah, all I would add to that is that, you know, physical chemistry is a real thing and circumstances of life are real things. And so I personally know what it's like to have depression and not have a reason. And I'm also very well aware of what it means to be triggered by life or exhaustion and have it trigger depression as well. And so it doesn't mean, we're not saying it's easy. We're not saying like, oh, just like, what you don't want to tell someone who's depressed is buck up. Like that means you've never had it. You know what I mean? If you can say that, we don't say buck up. But it is saying that there's tools that you have and you're not alone. And that, you know, the part of that's not physical, you know, because of a physical problem or physical issue, is the thought pattern. And so we have the right to take that captive. So this is a really good, I'm really glad you brought this this up, because this is a much better verse, much better translation. It's good. Jeez. Okay. What about, I don't have anything to add to mental. I just kind of interacted with you guys. So I thought that was really good. What about, actually, Destin, did you interact on this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Talked about like inputs.
Inputs thing.
Kind of,
okay.
Yeah. Talking about inputs.
I don't have anything. This is probably an area where I just don't have enough to give you guys. So I just like what you guys both said.
What's your book, Dustin?
Do what?
What's your thoughts on that book?
It's been a while since, because I was trying to read it, and I was like, man, that's a hard book. So I ended up just doing somebody had an online one, on YouTube or something. So I just ended up listening to it. So it's been a while. But the main takeaway for me is that to not limit yourself. Those are the people that succeed. You just don't say something's not possible. You try, you figure it out. You know, those are people that succeed. They're not people that quit. You know, that's the big difference between people who succeed and people who don't. They just didn't quit. And so I make it a point to, you know, something may not work, but I'm not a quitter by no means. I'm not going to quit something because it's hard.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
Her book is basically arguing that there's two mindsets. There's a fixed mindset and then there's a growth mindset. The fixed mindset says, I am where I am. There's nothing I can do about it. I have to get used to it or learn to manage it. And the growth mindset says, this is temporary. Whatever I'm seeking, it is attainable. And then, you know, it's unlimited, like Dustin was saying. And so I 100% agree with her. Not just because I read the book.
And like, it's real funny. I don't think that people realize how smart they are. I used to think I was very athletic when I was younger. So that wasn't really something that came up a whole lot. Like, oh, you're smart. No, it's, oh, you're athletic and you're a good kid. And I didn't realize I was smart until I challenged myself. I ended up getting interested in life insurance, right? Weird kind of deal. And studied for the test, passed the test. I was like, wow, I must be pretty smart. After that, I learned conversational Japanese in about 6 months. And I said, wow, I'm pretty smart. I think people limit themselves on what they can do because they're afraid to fail, so they don't try. But if they just do something every single day and just do it, you know, and manage it into small pieces, your brain just has limitless possibilities. People can learn 12 different languages. I think we have a capacity of, was it 15 languages or something is what they said? That's just amazing that we could do that. But it's people that they get complacent, they don't think they can do anymore, and so they stop. They stop growing.
Wow. Good one. Good one for sure. I guess I have one thing to add to what you said, which is that I just have to agree really wholeheartedly with the don't limit yourself thing. I think for you to discover what you're capable of and also to become what you're capable of, not limiting yourself and almost trying to attack hard things is a really good idea. Did I tell you guys about a guy who I did some analysis on his business that I submitted a job application for, didn't hear from them, and then I did some free analysis for him. Did I tell you guys about that? I did tell you, Jordan.
The business.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
You told me.
Maybe I told you, but not Dustin or something. I don't know. It might have been on a podcast. Yeah, the really short version, talking about not limiting yourself and tapping into potential and all that. So it was a company called support.com. They've been around for 20 years, but they've been through 2 or 3 different sort of evolutions. And I applied for a job for a sales leadership position on LinkedIn Jobs and didn't hear back, which, you know, right now it's a tough job market. Everybody is looking and it's just tough. And so I knew that, you know, but then I saw this director. Dustin, you have not heard this, right? I don't want to repeat it. Okay.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Okay. Sorry, Jordan. I'll go quick. And so I saw this guy looked at my profile on LinkedIn, and I was like, okay, he's a director. That's cool. That's interesting. I wonder if it's because I, applied for the job, and he was checking to see what I'm all about. And so I clicked on his profile because I was curious, and he wasn't just a director; he was the CEO. And I was like, whoa. So I basically figured out what his email address was and his company, because there's a way to do that. If you go to email-checker.net, you can start putting in combinations until it checks, because it'll go do like a quick server check to see if it's valid. So you can figure out anybody's email address with that almost. So I figured that out, and then I basically spent 2 or 3, 4 hours. I really don't know. I think it was closer to 5 hours between doing the analysis and then writing it up and cleaning it up and rewriting it. Anyway, I looked at support.com's website, and I prayed about it, and I meditated, and I thought hard, and I basically created all these different new ideas for them for their company of what they could do from a sales and growth perspective. And I wrote it up into this email, and I got a response from the CEO. And it's leading to some progress on, I said I had a bad day on job interviews, but this one is still out there. And I've already had a call with a recruiter, and the next step is actually a call with that CEO. But it's all because I didn't, like Dustin just said, I didn't limit myself, like, oh, you can't email a CEO, or oh, you don't have anything to offer on business analysis, or you could listen to a lot of voices of doubt. You could, right? But I just, for some reason, must have been God just inspiring me. But I did all this very thorough interrogation of their business and give them some ideas, and it really worked. So what if I wouldn't have done that, or what if you wouldn't have tried Japanese, or any of the topics? So I think you're right. I mean, I wasn't aware that we had 15 language capacities, but I do think we don't bet on ourselves enough. And so I think that's a really good mindset to have. So it worked for me on that one thing. And I've done some other analysis for 2 or 3 situations, and it's been very well received actually from that. So anyway, I agree with you guys. Mindset. What about emotional? Who wants to go first on that?
What would be a good example?
So emotional could be anything. I mean, you could talk about the damage of life that happens, right? So when I went to a thing called Quest, you can go check it out at thequestlife.org, I think is their website. And it's a 1-week intensive. It's either all men or all women. They're not mixed. And you basically really go deep with God, but you do dig into some emotional issues. And most of the guys have a wound from their dad, because every dad does their best, but they're not God, and so a lot of people I think almost everybody has father wounds of some kind. And so it's one of the topics that they try to help with, and other types of emotional issues. We had guys at Quest that were, I think one guy was guilty of murder. 3 or 4 guys had been sexually abused. 1 or 2 guys were currently going through separation and possible divorce. One guy beat up his wife until she left him. Very tough stuff. And by the way, like normal looking people, like super normal looking people. In fact, one guy was like one of the top ophthalmologists in the country, and had a very nice, really nice guy. But even with him, like his mom had been pretty abusive of him. So I feel like everybody has stuff that's happened to them that causes damage. And so but a lot of times we don't want to face that. And I can understand that, but I will say that a safe environment like Quest, or, make your own Quest, go camping with, people, and for the express purpose of seeking and sharing and stuff. But it was really helpful to me, and helped me to deal with some stuff that, father wound and some other stuff that I was doing. I've had historically a very strong stronghold with jealousy, and it's not fair to my wife, but I have. And it's nothing that she's done. She's boringly faithful. But I have had that for some reason. I actually do know why. It's something that happened with my parents. So, but we all have stuff, and so I'm just curious, how do you, that's one way I dealt with my stuff, guys. Obviously getting laid off by a friend of mine who, hired me away from a good job and then put me in the situation and then now has me on the street. That has caused some hurts too. So I've been kind of in that active forgiveness process, and basically continuous forgiveness is kind of the way I'm handling that right now. But how do you guys, deal with it? I know guys don't like to talk about this. I'm probably unusual in that I don't mind talking about it. So you guys don't have to go particularly deep, but how do you identify issues that are under there? And have you ever done anything that helped you work on that stuff?
Yeah, the biggest help for me has been the Enneagram. And so whenever I invested in the time to learn about myself, which we spoke about last week, and I learned about my negative traits and essentially negative triggers and where they would go, then what happened is in the business world or in any relationship thereafter, I could realize, hey, I'm going negative, and I could feel my emotional start to get out of whack. And so all of it is growing in maturity in my mind. And so as I'm maturing and understanding, negative inputs or negative being, sinful, or negative just being from another person, I'm able to better control that emotion, or better be able to a lot of times just reciprocate that right back into wherever it came from, and dig deep to find out, why are you bringing negativity to me? Because again, if I can cut that source off, then I don't have to sit here and battle it all day long. So
good. So the testing, the Enneagram, and reflection on that has helped quite a bit.
Tremendously. It's super helpful to know this behavior that seems natural is negative, and so it's just helpful to know that. It's helpful to know that emotional state, that if I continue to go down this road, I'm going to feel this way. I'm going to have this negative outburst, or I'm going to have this thought is going to transition over here to this. And so that's really, I've spent a lot of time there in the past probably year and a half. So
that's great. Cool. What about you, Dustin? Anything the Lord has, any topic around this that you want to talk about, or not?
I'm typically kind of closed off emotionally most of the time. That's kind of how my dad is.
Most guys are.
Yeah.
Very common.
But I would say the biggest, I don't want to say benefit, but my wife's been helping me a whole lot to get out of my comfort zone. It's easy for me to close off and not be emotional, not be forgiving, not being open to things. And even we had an incident. Her mom came by the house, and I haven't even told Jordan this. We've had issues with her mom leaving us out on our own. She was helping out with a lot of things, and she decided to up and leave in the middle of the night. And she's been gone for over a year, and decided to show up yesterday. Didn't tell anybody, just showed up and wanted to get some of her stuff, and had to break it to her that, hey, most of your stuff is gone. It's been over a year. And it's quick for me to condemn somebody and say, no, you hurt me. You don't get the satisfaction, or you don't get to come back like nothing happened. You owe me something. right? You hurt me, you hurt us. And, you know, I firmly believe that my wife is, you know, the voice of the Holy Spirit a lot of times. She straight up just looked at me and said, "You need to be more forgiving." I was like, put my head down. I was like, whatever you think. I'm just, she seems to be like that connection emotionally that I'm missing. And so oftentimes I'll look at her and say, how do I need to feel about this? Am I feeling like I should be feeling, or am I being, you know, insensitive right now? And so she's been helping me a lot, to not only how to deal with people, but also how to deal with my own feelings of unforgiveness. Wow. Even I think a lot of that. My dad's very unforgiving. He can. We'll talk about something, and he'll say, "Well, I don't like that person because he did this one time," and I can just look at him and say, "You have this heart of unforgiveness, and it's emotionally, it's going to take a toll on you. You know, that's why we forgive people. It's not for that person; it's for us, right? It's for us emotionally, right?" And so that's been the big thing for me, is getting free emotionally from all that junk and all that burden, and just allowing to let it go, and just get rid of it. So that's been the big thing for me. And, you know, every day is a battle. You know, it's easy for me to talk to somebody on the phone and have a harsh word, and then the next person I talk to, I can't have a harsh word with that person. I have to turn that off and start all over again.
Wow,
you know, and I do that. I've got to do that 60 to 100 times a day to just wash it clean every single time. Wash it clean. And so,
yeah, right.
It's a practice I have to do. You know, you got to do it.
That would be hard. No question. I just did a quick search, and there is quite a bit, it seems like, about this. Like, this is a really good one. The Lord is near the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. That's really good. So apparently it's, you know, even King David. I assume this is, my guess is that's King David. I'm not going to put on it, but I think it is. There's one that says he's near the brokenhearted. Well, that's the one. And then here is, he heals the brokenhearted. So he's not talking about someone's cardiac problem. He's talking about a heart inside. You know what I mean? So this is a topic that is apparently a pretty good one, that there is a thing called a broken heart, you know, that we do have inner hurts that do happen. Yeah. Anyway, and then of course this comes into anxiety too. I just saw it and then I accidentally scrolled. Here's a good one about anxiety and casting your cares. Anyway, I mean, I would say that in general, so Quest I recommend highly. It's about $600 for the week that you go. You turn your cell phone in, by the way, so it's hard on the wives to deal with that. But you have a whole day of fasting. You have you spend some time in the woods by yourself all day, and they give you like this stuff to follow, and they give you like the whole cookbook and stuff to do on that with God. God really spoke to me during that time. But I would say, I mean, for my, like, so, I mean, I guess I'll bring up, you know, some stuff in sort of like on the quick here with emotional. So obviously, you know, I kind of mentioned earlier that today was a hard day. I had, you know, I've actually had 3 things I've invested time in from a job perspective that I had a lot of hopes in that are not turning out. One of them is undefined, but I can tell you it's a no. It's a no. So I have 3 no's basically in less than a day. And that's after preparing. I don't know that I mean, I don't remember working harder in my life than I did over the weekend in preparing for this thing. So it's like, you know, tough day. But I'll tell you that what I'm doing, and it doesn't make it easier, really. Like physically, it's hard. Like it's a circumstance that's truly not easy. But I'll tell you guys that what I'm doing is every day, I am just connecting with the Lord. I'm really, really, really connecting with Him. And part of it is the Word. I agree with you. That's been a really big help. I've been doing the Bible in a year for 31 days now. And so that's been really good. Plus I do Jordan's thing every day as well. And then I just sit with the Lord and I just talk to Him and I ask Him questions and I just tell Him, so I'm getting, and He's talking to me like I'm every day there's something. And so that's kind of my solution. And I have a little bit of a history that when I was first getting off of porn and that whole drama, when I first got married, which was a tough 2 years, by the way. But what I noticed is that as I brought those hurts and I brought those temptations to the Lord, and I have a whole write-up on this if you guys ever wanted to read it on a website called christianbusinessguy.com. And right there on that first page is my whole testimony. It's kind of like long. It's like this long scrolling story. But there's a quote in there that I say, which is that as I would bring that particular hurt and temptation to the Lord, I thought I was kind of getting temporary help. But here's what I have found. As I bring the topic of the day, and that was a critical, really damaging, really dangerous topic actually for that time of my life. And it's not like I still have to battle to be pure all the time, no doubt. But at the time it was like very addicted, very bad, time of my life. And I was getting married, so I wanted to be pure. But as I would bring those temptations to the Lord, and as I would bring other things to the Lord, He would give me like some instant relief, but I thought it would always be there. So what I thought is that, okay, well, this is a hurt or a temptation or a weakness or whatever, and I'll bring it to God and I'll get a Band-Aid, but I'm going to have to go to get another Band-Aid in 2 days or like tomorrow or whatever it was. And what I write about in that blog is that I found over time that the Lord tricked me, and He wasn't just giving me a Band-Aid, He was actually curing me. And so a lot of these emotional wounds or temptations or whatever, not saying especially for a guy, you're going to always be having to be kind of on the careful and on the up and up to be, to walk in purity. But I mean, for a lot of but even for that one, you can still have a pretty good amount of liberty in general, and then just keep an eye on that. But whether it be topics of hurts or wounds or jealousy or anger or rage or unforgiveness, as we bring those to the Father, my experience, and I'm still growing every day and have a long way to go, but on some of those topics, I noticed that I wasn't just getting the Band-Aid, I was getting healed. And that's a beautiful little surprise that my journey has taught me about sort of the emotional side of this. So that's emotional. We've touched on spiritual. Who wants to start on this? We got 19 minutes.
For me, the spiritual investment is one that I just continue to try to pour into. And I try to just do it differently. I know that the morning time it's my favorite just because of the volume of insight or wisdom or just comfort or direction I get for that day. But I just find that it's so fueling to me. And it seems when I invest in the spiritual, it fills the need that I'm actually looking for, that like my flesh is looking for. So for business, what I'm saying is, as I'm investing in the spiritual, when I'm listening to Bible Project, or I'm listening to Tim Keller, I'm listening to whoever, as I'm listening about whatever topic, all of a sudden something will trigger, and it'll allow me to finish my thought or finish my obligation for business. Happens every day.
Can you give me an example? Because I'm not tracking on that.
Yeah, so 90-something%, maybe more than that, almost 100% of the content that I deliver in business comes from my morning walk. In that time frame, I mean, it's just like a faucet, you know. And some of it I'm kind of directing that way with what I'm reading, but not most of it. I mean, most of it is I spend the first portion of the walk just saying, God, I don't have an agenda here today. I don't want to come here.
Ooh, I like that, by the way. I love that phrase.
I mean, that's my number one question under every single day. God, what do you want to tell me today? No agenda. Yeah. I don't want to set the for what I need from you. I know that I have needs and I'm going to ask you, but before I get into me, what do you want to?
I love that a lot.
Can you set me straight a lot? Because again, a lot of times when you set me straight, sometimes it'll just take care of these needs over here. And I just continue. And I know I've said it at least 2 times today in this recording, but I try to say this even more and more and more. God, I'm inviting you in. You know, the other day, it's just simple logic. So I'm driving home. You know, I'm down outside of Austin, almost towards like Fredericksburg. You know, staying on a ranch. I want to go to Austin so I can feed some homeless people, about 150 people. So I'm planning that in my mind. On the way home, I need to drop off some challah to a former pastor, you know, because he requested some. And then I need to get to Flower Mound.
You're dropping off what?
Challah. It's some bread.
Oh, okay.
So that means I need to drop off some at your house. That's what that's telling me. So
I can't eat it, but I'll give it to my family.
Yeah, let them eat it.
Okay.
So expect some this weekend.
I'll text you my address.
Oh, I know where you live.
Okay.
So I just have all these things, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to fit in schedule, right? It just doesn't seem like there's going to be enough time. And so I just continued to remind myself throughout the drive, God, I'm inviting you into this. And, you know, at any point in time, God, if there's an accident, I'm going to miss out. I'm going to be late, or I'm going to have to tell somebody I can't do it. But instead of just sitting there having this anxiety or whatever, I just said, God, I invite you into this. I'm taking it off my plate. I'm not dealing with that. I invite you in, and what do you want to talk about? And so I just did that for the entire ride, and I was on time to everything, you know. And I mean, whether he physically did something or not, it's really irrelevant. But I just invited him in, and I'm trying to make that practice. God, my 3-year-old son's throwing a fit. I'm inviting you in. What am I supposed to learn here? Can I learn to be a better father? Can I learn to trust you more? Can I learn to receive something from you? Can I learn to speak to him? You know, and it's just one of these things that the more I invite him in to everything, the more it's a faucet. He's just willing to pour in. So long answer short.
No, I liked it.
So.
Dustin, I'm a little stumped. Do you want to go next?
Spiritually for me, I've dedicated my mornings for the past, 3 or 4 years now to quiet time.
Wow, that's amazing.
Just like Jordan, I've had my best ideas come in the morning, my best revelations, a word that I needed for the day. So that's been a big spiritual growth for me. But it's also helped, obviously, mature me and sharpen me as well. I do like what Jordan said about inviting the Lord into situations, or seeing every situation as like a learning environment as opposed to something that's happening to me. And so that's something I need to go and kind of, you know, it made me think about what I went through today. You know, Lord, what do I need to learn from this? What do I need to get from this? What are you teaching me through this process? And how can I learn from that and then prepare myself next time in case this comes up? So I do like that.
I do too. I mean, I'm not going to add to the devotional side because you guys cover that. I think you guys have really good discipline, probably better than me, although I have gotten better about it this year. Um, I would say that I guess my way of growing in the Lord historically, I mean, I've always done like basically, I don't know how many years, I've probably only missed a couple, like maybe a dozen times, but I read a psalm every day. So that is kind of my daily devotion is I read a psalm and I journal occasionally and I pray some. Um, so that's been pretty faithful. But as far as like really heavier about Bible, it's just been, like I said, 31 days when I've been doing the Bible in a year on YouVersion. So that's been really good for me. I think I'm very encouraged about that. It's taken me a while to get into the discipline of reading Jordan's thing every day, but I've been doing good for like the last 2 or 3 of that. So it's been great. Before that, I was kind of spotty. But now that I'm on YouVersion anyway, it's literally right there it's in my plan. So I don't have to like remember. I used to read my Bible in my Kindle app. And so that's why I didn't ever see his reminders, because I was never in YouVersion. I'd read my Bible on my Kindle. But anyway, yeah, so I think that's been really good for me lately. I would say historically the greatest growth that I've received spiritually and investing in my health, spiritually, has been just relying on the Lord. So I'll tell you a quick story. Actually, I want to tell you something bad, and then I want to tell you something good. So the bad is that I'm close to the Lord, but it's because it's coming from a place of need. So the reason I'm close to the Lord is kind of like selfish, and I'm close to Him, and I do have quite a decent fellowship with Him, but it's because of some of the hurts in my past and doubt and challenges and stress and anxiety and drama that I've been through. So I've somehow, I will say, there's probably been some mentors that helped me along the way, but somehow over the years, I've just decided, like He's my source, He's my foundation, and so I get Him involved in everything. And I'll tell you so that's the bad news, is like the reason I'm close to God is, unfortunately, it's because of life has been how it's been in some ways. So I've learned to leverage God's help a lot, right? Okay, so that's kind of like a little bit of a tinge sad, but the good outcome is that now I do know how to seek the Lord, and I do know how to walk with Him, and also I can be very sympathetic to people who go through hard times. And when I tell them, let's get the Lord involved and let's pray about this, like I'm saying it not because it's like pie in the sky. It's like really how I live, because it's how I've had to survive. So that's kind of like a little bit of a tougher story, but it started off actually in a really positive way, and it has led to really good things. Back in March of 1999, I was driving home from work, and I just had this thought pop into my head. I was like, Lord, and I wasn't like a person of prayer at the time, and I was like, Lord, I always have people say like, trust God, or you should trust God, or whatever. And I didn't know. I said, and I was mad at Him. I was like, I don't have anything to trust you about. Like, I don't even know what that means. Like, trust God, blah, blah, blah. So I'm so freaking spiritual. And I'm like, I'm driving home. I have nothing to trust you about. And I'm like offended by that. I'm hurt by that. Like, I have nothing. Like, we can't cooperate on one thing. And then what popped into my head right after I said that, getting emotional. It's a good story. What popped into my head was that my boss was a bully at work, and he had just yelled at me, and I was worried about my job. And he was always not cool to me. He was never nice to me. I had 2 or 3 pretty bad bosses in my life. And so I was like, oh, well, I could trust you with that. And so that's how it started, that's how I've learned to and then about 2 weeks later, something happened at work, and I'm driving home thinking about it. And it occurs to me, I'll do air quotes, it occurred to me that I could trust God with that. And so it kind of became this pattern, is like I started turning everything. Eventually I got faster and faster at it. And, I would go from suffering for like days to like a few hours. It's probably never been minutes. But usually there's a little bit of time where I process it, and then I remember to go to God with it. But yeah, that became a really good habit. That became a wonderful, beautiful spiritual thing, to where now, I'm not saying that life is always easy, but I've just learned to invest in my spiritual health by holding my Father's hand and by getting him involved in everything. And that's the good and the bad. Sometimes I sit in this chair in the morning and I'm just like, I have no words for you right now, because I don't know how to thank you for what you've done for my family and I. And I don't know how to thank you. I'm just going to sit here because I can't even speak. So it's not like it's always like something bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it started with, and because God is a God of resurrection. And it did start off with like, I didn't know how to relate to God. I had all these spiritual people in my life talking about trusting him. And I'm just like, what does that mean? That sounds so religious. And it's not, you know what I mean? Anyway, so it's a little special story. It's a little insight I don't share with everybody. I guess now I have. Yeah, that's how I relate to growing right there, man. It's how I invest in spiritual is like very practical. For me, it's like bringing issues to God. And, oh, by the way, I would tell you one more thing. So I'm getting a little fierce here about this. One day I was driving to work, didn't have time. This is actually in this house, so it's not that many years ago. Driving to work, and I was like, I didn't have time for devotion. And yet I have this big thing at work that's going on. And I'm like, God, I am sorry that I have to talk to you about this work issue. And we haven't even had just fellowship today. I didn't have any devotion time with you today, but I've got to get your help on this issue. I've got to pray about this particular issue. And you know what he said? I'll never forget it. He said, there's no difference. He had more bass in his voice than I do. There's no difference. Anyway, my point
like James Earl Jones,
yeah, it was a much better voice. Yeah. It's always neater sounding in my heart than it is when I say it, but it was a really beautiful time. So what's really great is like
Unpack that.
Say it again.
Unpack that.
So what he was saying is like, yeah, do I want you to have devotional time with me and stuff? Yeah, that's awesome. But the fact that you, my son, want to talk to me about your job and you want some counsel on that, I don't differentiate, like you're not less spiritual or I'm not less excited to have you come into my chambers as you're driving to work to talk to me about this issue than for you to have Hillsong on and raising your hands in your living room. Like there's no difference for me. It's just me. It's just time with my son. It's like the most life-changing, sweetest thing. I mean, it makes me tear up because it's like he genuinely wants to spend time with us. It's unbelievable. That level of, I mean, if you think about it, if Hunter came in there right now, and he had a boo-boo to deal with, right, versus him just wanting to sit with you, versus him wanting a sandwich. I mean, it's like you love to have that interaction. You know what I mean? How much more does our Heavenly Father just love that interaction with us? And what he told me was, you missed your devotion, and I'm just glad you're talking to me about this thing. Let's do it. There's no difference for me. I'm all in.
And I beat myself up all the time whenever if I miss, man, I'm frustrated with myself. Or if I'm tardy, man, I beat myself up, sometimes for a good while, because especially like, I know that I want to. It's my desire, because it used to be I didn't have a desire to. I missed it because I didn't want to. And I wanted to sleep in. I wanted to go drink, or I wanted to just whatever, and so it was, but now it's like, so like this morning, I was up at 4 a.m. and I was ready to go. But it was a little early because normally I take Hunter with me and I push him in the stroller. And so, but if I go too early, then it could be a little difficult for him. So I was just like, okay, I'm just going to breathe for a little while and then we'll just leave at 5. And I fell asleep, and I was so mad. I woke up just heated at myself, and I went anyways, you know, and had a great time. But I was just so frustrated. Like, you know, as I was leaving, I was like, God, I should have been back by now. We should have had our conversation, you know. And I was just so frustrated with myself, you know.
That's how I was feeling when I drove. Same thing. So mad because my work was taken over, and I work really hard. I'm kind of, you know, I really don't like the word workaholic, but I do work really hard. And so, you know, that it always gets a pretty strong priority out of me. And so I probably, knowing me, I'm sure I worked until 2 a.m., dragged myself out of bed at 7:30 to rush out the door by 8. You know, I mean, I know that's what I did that day. And so here I was stressed about whatever that thing was, which I don't remember, but you know what I remember? I remember my father being really excited that I was just driving and just asking him about work stuff. So beautiful. And he always surprises me. In fact, my wife knows this story. I used to be a big bathtub prayer guy because it's the one place people can't come bother me. So I would just have my devotions in there. But then I stopped doing it because I fall asleep in there. So I just sit here in my chair, which is pretty good. But I used to go there, and it's funny because if I would like lose my temper with Jamie, or if whatever situation, you know, this is a similar story, I would go in there. I remember going in there, and I would like confess, like, I'm sorry, Lord, I lost my temper, or I'm sorry, whatever, or I'm sorry I had a lustful thought, or, oh, I saw that and I should have fast forwarded it, I didn't, or whatever, you know, whatever I don't know, come up with the issues of life, and I'm sure I've done it or thought about it or maybe whatever, or tempted by it or something, or fell for it. Anyway, so I'd go into the bathtub to spend my little private time because no one could come in there, and it's like the Lord didn't want to talk about it. I'm like, hang on, but you understand, I just told you, hang on, you don't understand, I lost my temper and I yelled at Jamie like really loud, like I was really rude about that, like I was very, he goes, I swear, I can't explain how the second I didn't even speak it and he forgave me. And he did not want to talk about it. And that's my experience with him, is like, I'll bring this dark blob to him and he'd be like, okay, let's talk about you. Let's talk about how's it going? And he just wants to spend time with me. He just wants time with his boy. It's so shocking. So my spiritual story really starts from not knowing I could get God involved at all, and feeling very sad and unworthy because I had nothing to trust him with, until it became like everything is a topic of sharing and interacting. And it's still effort. And like I said, today I had a bad day just because I had so much rejection from job stuff in one day. It's just really hard, especially when you work that hard for it. But like I'm bringing it to God. I'm going, and I'm the same pattern. And he was beautiful today. He spoke to me 2 words today, 2 little miracles today, like too long of a story, but 2 little things that I could show you. If you look at my journal, the way they unfolded, I'll tell you one of them. I said, Lord, I need you to validate me because I'm having all these rejections. I need you to validate me. In that moment, I typed that moment, and Jamie called me from the room in there, called me on the cell phone to check on me, see how I'm doing. I'm just like, I can't even choose timing like that. She doesn't do that. She's not touchy-feely at all. I am. And she just calls me, she wants to check on me. I'm just like, whatever. And it took me a minute to realize that was God answering. I'm like, wait a minute, I just journaled, like I'm typing and I'm saying, can you please validate me? I'm feeling like crap. And Jamie calls to help me, to bless me. I mean, it's just like one of 2 pretty big ones today. Anyway, that's too long for me. Sorry.